Hey y'all, this ad was made for the Sponsor Me Honey contest. So a little bit about me, I'm definitely a penny pitcher. I love the thrift store and a good deal. If you're like me, you probably got to the checkout screen and Googled coupon codes just to see that none of them worked. That's happened to me a few times, but that's where Honey comes in.
Honey is the simplest way to save. Honey is a browser extension that searches the web for the best promo codes to help you save your money. To start saving today, go to joinhoney.com/besthoneyad to download Honey to your computer or laptop. That's joinhoney.com/besthoneyad. Tell them Hoodoo Plant Mama sent you.
Hoodoo Plant Mamas. Get your soul fed and your spirit red.
This here ain't no trend. I possess the power from way back when. Back when folk were stripped from all of their kin, so they had to find the magic within. So I call on my ancestors and gather my herbs. I conjure at my altar. Hoodoo Plant Mama. I manifest growth and I release trauma.
Child, we just out here trying to water our plants and mind our business, you know? Everybody ain't from the deep south, man. Everybody can't have a culture like us.
Hey y'all, welcome to Hoodoo Plant Mama's podcast. I'm Lou Nicole.
And I'm Dani B.
Thank y'all for joining us for our second episode. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about folklore, but before we do, let's check in. Dani B, how are you doing?
Man, it has been so weird, and I've been saying stuff about how the veil is getting thinner. So you probably seen, or you may have missed it, I went in this whole rant on my IG page about how somebody's putting the evil eye on me and I don't know what's going on, but I've been feeling fucking weird and paranoid. And then I seen a tweet about how that's basically, if you're spiritually sensitive, that's how a lot of people are feeling. So I've been had to take hella spiritual baths. I actually had to, like, maybe last week or the week before, it was like the middle of the day, randomly something just told me to go take a white bath because I was just feeling, I can't even explain it. So, yeah, I just been feeling a little overly exhausted. Anytime I leave the house, actually, and I don't leave the house that much, but I have a class that's been meeting in person, and literally every time, like both times that I have went in person and socially distanced, y'all, but I've just come back home and just felt like heavy and just, I don't know, really down, kind of depressed. So I've been kind of feeling kind of weird. How about you?
I'm glad you said that. I've also been feeling a little off, and I wasn't sure what was going on. I've also been seeing shadows, and it's terrifying. I just got back from Mississippi. I went to go see my family, and it was a nice little trip. While I was there, I did some spiritual stuff. So my family lives in my great-grandmother's house, and she died in that house. And so, like, they'll hear things, like the door opening and shutting, no one's there, footsteps, no one's there but them. They'll see shadows and stuff, and they believe in spirits. So what I did was I built an altar for my great-grandmother, because she has pictures of her in the house, and they had them, like, tucked away in a drawer. And I was like, let's put this on a table. Let's put a candle near it. Let's put some water. So I did that. And I also went to the cemetery to see my dead folks and go pay respects to them. And so my mother was talking about how she hasn't seen her grandparents since, I don't think she went to their funerals.
Yeah.
So she hasn't ever been to the cemetery, and she really appreciated that trip and just the opportunity to go see her people. Also, we found out that, I don't know what the cemetery is doing, but I think they're like burying people on top of people, because there were supposed to be two headstones, and there was only one. So
I think our practices are not sustainable, and I know with some cultures they wrap you in something that basically it'll I don't want to say decompose, but maybe in your body it'll all just become one with the earth. And I think that putting us in the ground in like those, whatever you call them, I don't know why words are leaving
coffins?
me. Yeah, those coffins, those fancy ass coffins, and then what happens to that,
or
you
casket.
know?
It's a casket.
Casket. And yeah, and then you're running out of space too. So I don't know.
I would actually prefer a natural burial, which is what you're talking about, where they just take your body, probably take out all the organs that other people need, wrap you up. They don't pump you with all the formaldehyde and stuff, and you just go back to the earth where you belong.
Yeah. Did you wear a hair wrap when you went to a head covering when you went to the cemetery?
No.
That's why you've been seeing them shadows. No. No. You probably just need a white bath too, which is, I think everybody does it differently, but you can use like coconut milk and then whatever
I
else.
have not bought coconut milk. I've been meaning to. Even while I was there, I was like, every day I'm here, I'm going to do a white bath. Because you can do it, I think, up to 9 or 10 days in a row. So I was like, I'm going to do that. And I never bought coconut milk or anything. So I was like, okay.
You still got time. Although, you know, water is powerful by itself too. But all right. So let's go into some gratitude, since we both been in weird spaces. And so you can go first.
Oh, okay. So one, I'm grateful for all the listeners of this podcast. I'm grateful for all the support that we've gotten so far. And number 2, I'm also grateful for therapy. I'm so grateful for therapy. Right now I have 2 therapists, a talk therapist and an EMDR therapist. And the best way I can describe EMDR is inner child work. And it's very hard. It's very draining. But going back to Mississippi, it made me realize just how much work I've done in therapy. It was the first time I was in Mississippi since I was 18 that I was not suffering from anxiety, that I didn't have a panic attack. And I was just like, oh my God. It was the first time I felt normal in Mississippi. So I was like, this is amazing.
Wow. I am also super grateful for the support we've gotten. I'm grateful for this podcast. I was actually looking forward to this all week. I was just like, oh, I get to end my week like doing the podcast, because it's just, I don't know, it's really a bright spot right now in my life. And I'm super grateful for the messages, you know, that I've been receiving in such unexpected ways. Like, I have been reading Randall Keenan's Let the Dead Bury Their Dad for a class, and I came across something that I feel like was a message for something I've been working on creatively, and it was so random. I was like, oh my gosh. So just little things, because I feel like I've been asking a lot for like guidance, even with my creative work, because I feel like my writing is something that's collaboratory with, you know, people, my ancestors, you know, people's stories that I'm carrying on and my own story. So yeah, so I'm super grateful for messages and discernment, my own discernment in receiving those messages.
So do you want to start talking about some African-American folklore?
Yes, let's talk about some Afro-American folklore.
Yay! So I put out on the Instagram asking people what were their favorite Black folklore or folktales growing up, and a lot of people recommended The People Could Fly, American Black Folktales by Virginia Hamilton. And while I had heard of The People Could Fly, I've never read it. Or at least just that folktale. I had never read it. But I checked it out from the library. And so just the way that Hamilton described folktales and kind of how they came to be, or at least Black folktales and how they came to be, is like this. She said, out of the contacts the plantation slaves made in their new world, combined with memories and habits from the old world of Africa, came a body of folk expression about the slaves and their experiences. The slaves created tales in which various animals, such as the rabbit, fox, bear, wolf, turtle, or terrapin, snake, and possum, took on the characteristics of the people found in the new environment of the plantation. The rabbit, known as Bravey and later called Brer, Buh, or Bruh Rabbit, became a particular favorite of the slave tellers. Rabbit was small and apparently helpless compared to the powerful bear, the wily fox, and the ferocious wolf. But the slave tailor made the rabbit smart, tricky, and clever, the winner over larger and stronger animals. Still, Bruh Rabbit sometimes got into trouble, just as the slaves did, which made him seem the more human. To the slaves, the rabbit came to be identified with themselves, which made these tales highly unusual in the animal folklore genre. So before I get to the next point, I wanted to say that reading this, it made me realize, well, I guess it is hoodoo. It made me realize just how many folktales were about overcoming or resisting this bigger power than yourself.
Yeah.
And kind of like we have that power to overtake them, because so many times it was like, you know, I'm not stronger than this lion, but I can take this lion out because I'm smarter than this lion. Or I'm not faster or I'm not stronger than this alligator or this bear or whatever. But it was like, I can take this person out because I'm smarter, because I have more skills, because I can do this or I can do that. So it was just, I don't know. And it's just interesting to see how enslaved Black people use these stories to kind of empower themselves and to make them feel like they are capable and, I don't know, I guess worthy or something of a better life.
Yeah, and a lot of too, and I guess they also sometimes considered fables. There's sometimes like underlying lessons. And I feel like Randall Keenan does that with his short story collection. A lot of these African-American writers who write these kind of fable-ish stories are very much engaged with nature, and I really love that.
Something else I wanted to point out was I read this statistic, it was back when I was on LinkedIn, of where there are more animal characters in children books than Black people. And so reading these folk tales, a lot of them seemed familiar. Like they seemed like things that I read when I was a child, even if they were not named the same. So a lot of me wonders, like, if a lot of these folk tales have been incorporated into our children's literature because they didn't have Black leads or lead characters, and just if that was preserved in that way. Because I'm also wondering, like, how are all of these like so familiar, even if I haven't heard about them specifically? So yeah, I think some people be stealing.
Oh, for sure. Then we find out The Lion King was like based on another movie from, am I making this up, that The Lion King had been ripped off? And I don't know if it was from an African country or somewhere else.
I've heard that it was like Hamlet.
Okay.
But it could, like, the African setting could be.
Yeah, no, I forgot it. Someone showed it. Someone showed a clip from where it had been stolen from. I just don't remember the origins, so I don't want to like misspeak on whether it was from an African country or from another country. But people do be ripping off, like, you know, African folklore and making it into something else that divorces it from its Blackness or its Africanness. So that is definitely true.
So to finish up this kind of history of folklore, Hamilton cited that after the Civil War, a John figure became the trickster hero who outwits Olmas, the slave owner, and wins his freedom. So I was thinking a lot about John the Conqueror, because a lot of people aren't quite sure, where he comes from or stuff like that. But he was known for resisting enslavers. He was known for resisting white supremacy. And when he was murdered, he said that he was going to leave his spirit in a root. Anytime a Black person needs to call on him to resist white supremacy or to protect ourselves from white supremacy, he'll be there to help protect us. So that's a little folktale too.
All right. So another part of like African American folklore and storytelling and passing along these different stories, I was thinking about some of the stories that I grew up hearing, just like exchanging with classmates and friends. And I call it schoolyard folklore. And I was, before we started recording, I was telling Leah, man, did you ever just sit around with your friends telling stories, usually scary stories? Because I feel like I did that a lot. Like, I don't know, maybe it was just because we didn't have social media and stuff. But we used to just sit around telling each other stories. Sometimes it'll be like stories I heard my grandma told me, or my auntie, I heard my grandma talking about this and they say this, that kind of stuff, which is just very like black people love a story.
Speaking of which, I just remember my music teacher in elementary school. She was a Black woman. Around this time, like around Halloween, every October, she would pull out like a book of scary stories. And I used to be so paranoid every time she would read them. But yeah, I remember this one of like this woman was in a house and by herself, and then like bacon started cooking. Yeah. And I think she used to always tell us these stories were true. So I was like, someone's going to be in my house cooking bacon. I'm like, this is not what you do to 7-year-olds.
Listen, it was so much. One of the ones that I remember, there's a few, but there was one, I feel like this was at every school. It was always like this rumor about the bathroom. I don't know if they had that at your school, but it was always like, oh, somebody died in the bathroom, or this, that happened, particularly in the girls' bathroom. And when I was in 4th grade, I swear, I don't know if nothing ever happened in that bathroom, but I always felt weird going in there. And it was a particular stall that all the girls always said, don't use that because that's where this girl named so-and-so, she bled to death in that bathroom. Child, I don't know. We were in 4th grade, okay? We were 9. So, and it was always an eerie feeling. And then there was like this other story about this 4-way stop in our town that was said to be haunted. Like if somebody's standing there, you got to keep driving. Don't stop. They'll try to get a ride from you, which is, 4-way stops are crossroads. I don't, maybe it's something to it, but I don't know. There were always those type of stories that we just kind of passed along and that we would hear from somebody that heard it from somebody, which I think is just kind of a part of our long tradition as Black people, even from when our ancestors were enslaved, of just storytelling. I just feel like that shit is inherited.
Yeah, I agree. Like thinking back to when I was in elementary school, a lot of the folk tales were about like people haunting things. And I think that it goes back to like, we have this belief that, once we die, it's not the end. We can still affect this realm. Mm-hmm. 'Cause a lot of the ones that I remember were like this woman, I forgot how she died, but her name was Mary, and she haunted the city cemetery. And if you go there on a full moon at like midnight, she's going to kill you or something, or you're going to see her, or she's crying. I forgot what she's doing.
Isn't it always something. Women? It's always women. And Black people love a story with a Mary in it, okay? They love a Mary.
I don't know.
But yeah, and it also goes back to this thing where, like, I think it's in the tradition of Black people to believe and know that spirits are attached to things. Like, nothing that we're a part of has not been impacted by the people that were there before us. So, you know, I know some people, and I do it now. I didn't used to, like, when you go into a new apartment, or unless it's a house built from the ground, but even then, you need to clear it. You need to clear it out, smoke it out with your incense, or my friend told me rosemary is really good as a cleanser, as you bundle it and burn it. But anything, you know, I guess try to avoid using sage. You know, there's mixed beliefs about sage, but because it's endangered,
sage is okay as long as it's not white sage.
Okay.
Because white sage is endangered.
Yeah. And then some people believe it's not, associated with like African traditions. I'm not getting into that whole debate, but just I would say don't use something that's already endangered and being overused, because that's super unkind to the earth and not aligned with, like, if you're a part of any kind of tradition that is rooted in the earth and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And like you said, there are alternatives like rosemary, thyme. Mm-hmm. I've heard of some people using lavender.
Yes, I've heard of lavender.
Like, there's so many things you can use.
Cedar. A friend did me like a cedar bundle, and it smells so good. And that worked really well. So, but yeah, there's always something attached, even to these streets. And I think, you know how, like, when rumors start, things change over time. I think that's how these oral stories that we pass on, but the truth is in there somewhere. There's always some truth attached to it. So yeah, I also, and I know one thing, and you talked to your grandmother this weekend. And so a part of this is these old wives' tales, which is connected to folklore, because usually it's from some kind of, like, there's some kind of background story to these old sayings. So did you want to talk a little bit about that? And then I'll share some of the ones I grew up hearing.
Yeah, of course. So while I was home, I talked to my grandmother, and we talked about a whole bunch of things. We talked about some old wives' tales that she grew up hearing, because a lot of things that, I referenced on the last show. My mama is like this encyclopedia of hoodoo, and she doesn't even know it. So she was like, I don't know a lot. If you need more info about this, go to her mother, my grandma. And so I did. And so we talked about some old wives' tales. We talked about plants, because I had seen this picture of my great grandmother, who's my grandmother's mother, who I'm named after. It's her and my brother, because she died when my brother was like 1. So, and I had seen this picture most of my life, and it wasn't until 2 years ago I noticed, like, beside her was a pot with a stick in it, and I was like, is that a plant? So I asked my grandma about that, and she was like, yeah, she was a avid gardener, and she had plants all around the house, all in the house, and we talked about that. And then she was watching Walker when I was taping her, so she started talking about that too. But anyway, if you want to listen to the whole interview, we're going to put it on Patreon at our flower tier, so you can listen to our whole conversation. But I'm going to insert a clip of her talking about an old wives' tale.
I don't know about, where it came from, what it meant, but they just had all these sayings, like, when you said that, I thought about, they say if you clip your baby's fingernails off, he'll be a thief, or he'll steal. But you're supposed to bite them off until they get about 7, 8 months old. I'll tell you something my mama made me do when I had Shonda. She wouldn't let me go the first time I went out of the house after I had her, because I had to stay inside, not even go out on the back porch, nothing, until she was 1 month old. before I could go anywhere else, I had to go out the back door, walk all the way around the house, and come back in the back door. Don't ask me why. Do not ask me why. That's what I was told to do. That's what I did.
Okay.
I also did not wash my hair during that month. I didn't get in the bathtub. I washed up the sponge and I just kind of wiped over my hair. Don't ask me why. That's what I was told to do.
Okay.
Since we're on pregnancy, I don't know if you ever heard this, but I heard you're not supposed to let a pregnant person do your hair or your hair will fall out.
I asked my mother and she was like, yeah, I have heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that a lot of these, like even what my grandma was talking about, and a lot of these old wives' tale are centered around like pregnancy and childbirth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another one that you may have heard this, but you're not supposed to take a picture of the dead. And for some reason, people love going to funerals, taking pictures of people in their caskets. And I'm just like, but there was, and I've heard of this too. I don't know if it was in a movie or something about, pictures. Oh yes. Somebody, I don't know who this was. It was an older person that went into more detail with me with this about how pictures capture the soul or something like that. You're not supposed to take a picture of the dead for that reason. Either way, if y'all know what I'm talking about and you can explain it better, feel free to email us and let us know. But it's something about how pictures capture your soul. You're not supposed to take pictures of dead people, or something like that. Being in Mississippi and in the country, especially, you hear all kind of weird shit. I'm just gonna be honest.
You are not lying.
But yeah, you're right. A lot of it does surround like women, and I feel like a lot of these are always like very gendered. Like it's always something with women, or women not supposed to do this, or you're not supposed to let this person do that, or all kind of weirds. Oh my gosh, your grandma, she talked about the biting fingernails thing.
Yeah.
I have always wondered, I've seen that. Like I've seen people do that to their newborns. And I'm like, why you biting off their fingers and toenails? Why you just won't clip it? And a part of me thought it was just like, oh, it's because they're so young and they don't want to hurt them with the clippers. And I'm just like, there's baby clippers. So maybe it's attached to that. But there's also this thing that we do where we don't know that it's attached to some kind of old wives' tale, but we just do it because our mama did it and her mama did it. My grandma told me too, speaking of people keeping secrets and being an encyclopedia not telling you, that her mama always said that you don't wash clothes the Sunday or Saturday before New Year's, and you never wash clothes on New Year's Day or something like that. I gotta go back and ask her, but it was something like,
I've heard about the not washing clothes on New Year's Day because you're gonna get buried in them that year.
Hers, I didn't hear that as the thing that will result. But yeah, it's just bad luck to wash clothes on New Year's Day, and I think she said the weekend before or the Sunday before New Year's Day. So her mama never did that.
Speaking of New Year's Day, there is the tale about greens and black eyed peas.
Mm-hmm.
Black eyed peas for good luck, greens for money.
Yeah. Listen, a lot of black families are religious about that. Sometimes they don't even know the meaning behind it. They just, we gotta make sure we have some greens of black eyed peas because that's how our grandma always did it. So, yeah.
And in addition to, like, earlier you were talking about our families doing things and not even knowing it. Like, I don't even know why babies aren't supposed to get their hair cut till 1. But it's something that's always done. And I asked my grandma, I was like, do you know why? And she's like, no, but you just don't do it.
Yeah, I feel like I always be attributing stuff to like safety. But I ain't never really seen a black person cut their baby hair before 1. Like usually I feel like people it's particularly, you know how people are with little boys. quote unquote, I said quote unquote, but you know, them not having long hair. And so, but still they like wait a really long time to cut their hair. Like it's a big deal when a little boy gets his hair cut. And then of course, you know, little girls, people are obsessed with them having long hair or longer hair. So, but yeah, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of not, but I can't say that I know of a Black person who be cutting their baby hair before one. It seemed to me too, just like the soft spot is still there in their head and all of that stuff. Maybe. It just seems dangerous anyway to be, that's just me. Ooh, another one. So, and I can't say that I do this, but you know, people be saying, if you know, don't be leaving around no brush with your hair in it. If you cut your hair, make sure you get it all up. Some people believe in keeping your own hair because people can work on you with your hair or different parts of your DNA. And I just feel like I never really, first of all, I just now started hearing about that as, I can't say as an adult. I just think I didn't pay attention as a kid about the whole dynamic of like, don't be letting people have strands of your hair, or be careful, don't leave hair in combs and brushes. But now I probably would be a little more mindful of that. But I'm locking my hair, so I don't really got to worry about that too much as far as brushes and combs. So, but yeah.
I know, growing up, I always saw my mother burning her hair, and I didn't know why she did it. I didn't even ask. I was just like, that's weird. So I started doing it because she did it. And so recently when I went home, I asked her, you know, why she did it. And she was like, she was told from, you know, the old people way back in the day that you do it so that way birds don't get a hold of your hair and set a nest, because you'll have a headache for the rest of your life. And I was like, interesting, because I read about that in Mojo Working, not for my mother.
Wow.
But yeah, so she knew about it. That was one of the reasons. Other reasons were, yeah, people can use your hair and your fingernails to do workings on you, so you have to burn it.
Yes, fingernails too. Yeah. And also, I remember I was a teenager, because I didn't start carrying purses until I was a teenager. And my aunt popped me for putting my purse on the floor. And she was like, after that, I always avoided it, because she was serious. She was like, girl, don't you ever put your purse on the floor. You'll never have money. You'll always be broke. And I was like, I was shook. I mean, it wasn't like extreme, but it was definitely like she was serious. She was serious. So, and then now when I see it, I have like a visceral reaction, like, oh my gosh, don't put your purse on the floor like that. Oh no. And I mean, also the floor is nasty. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's true. I found out about that because there was a picture of Beyonce sitting courtside with her purse on the floor. And someone was like, all of our grandmothers lied. And I was like, what are they talking about? And they were like, all Black people know about this. And I was like, I don't know. So I asked my mother, and she was like, yeah, like way back in the day, they say if you put your purse on the floor, you'll always be broke. And I'm like, why don't you tell me these things?
Listen, I feel like if you carry money in your purse, that's the case. Beyonce ain't carrying no money in her purse. But also, you know, we don't know what she got going on behind closed doors. It might also just bring bad luck in general. So
maybe.
But yeah, you never know. Listen, I ain't finna be calling my ancestors lies. If you say that I don't need to be putting my purse on the floor, I won't. Okay? I don't care what Beyonce doing. Oh my goodness. All right, so do you want to go ahead and take a break?
Yeah, we can take a break. There are a number of ways that you can support our podcast. Like, rate, and review Hoodoo Plant Mamas on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whatever streaming platform you use. Give us those 5 stars. You can share our podcast with your friends, family, and social media. Follow us on Twitter at Hoodoo Plants and Instagram at Hoodoo Plant Mamas. For monetary donations, you can join our Patreon where we share exclusive content like minisodes, tarot readings, and answers to your plant questions. You can also drop a donation on Cash App or PayPal. Any amount is appreciated.
We'd also like to thank our new patrons, Tasha, Morgan, and Lainey. And we want to thank Tasha and Jolicia for hitting us up on the Cash App. Your donations are helping to sustain our podcast. So we are always appreciative, and we're sending you back all the abundance of money, love, all of that good stuff. And if you're interested in donating, we have Cash App, PayPal. You can also set up a pledge every month of as low as $1, or you can become a patron for as little as $3 and have access to different perks. If you are interested in sponsoring an episode, hit us up via email at hoodooplantmamas@gmail.com. We especially want to work with Black, POC-owned, and queer-owned businesses. But if you're a white business wanting to be a good ally and drop some coins, we'll take that too. So let's get back to the show.
Okay, so I'm excited about this next part. I know that you, our resident conspiracy theory enthusiast, is going to be excited. So we're going to get into a few conspiracy theories, either that, we hold or that, a lot of people in the Black community hold. Mm-hmm. So do you want to go first?
Listen, I was trying to wrap my head around this, and the conspiracy theory that is mostly fun for me, I don't know if I actually believe it, is about birds, which didn't start with Black people. I think that's some Gen Z stuff about basically birds being like FBI droids. And my friends be so mad at me when I'm talking about birds in that way. But I'll say one of my favorite conspiracy theories, I don't want to say favorite, the funniest, was when we were growing up, all these Illuminati conspiracy theories that were attached to videos. I used to be on YouTube watching those videos like, oh, I ain't even noticed that sign. Oh, like seeing like, oh, I see the shadow too. They'll be just dissecting and picking out little things, and Beyonce been apparently doing rituals in her videos for the longest. So yeah, those are always funny. I always went down a rabbit hole with that. Again, I think with a lot of conspiracy theories, there's like a tiny bit of truth somewhere in there sometimes. But I will say something about particularly Black conspiracy theories that I've been really interested in, and I hope to do some more side research on it, is that a lot of our conspiracy theories have been rooted in just how we've been treated in this country. Even though some of them are problematic, I always think about this idea of some people don't want to vaccinate their children because of this historical thing with the Tuskegee experiment, and just the fact that white people and these, white coats and that kind of stuff have been committing these acts of violence against us. They're still doing it in some places, TBH, via these missionary groups and all kind of stuff. There was a lady, I don't know if that was Ethiopia or some African country, where she got caught pretending to be a doctor. She had opened up this whole clinic and a whole bunch of children had died under her care. And so a lot of these stories that we pass along, even such as oh, they're putting something in the water and poisoning us. But then Flint, Michigan happens. Jackson, Mississippi happens. Jackson, Mississippi had a lead problem too. I don't know if it's still a problem, but we used to be having all kind of boil water alerts, And then we all know that lead leads to developmental issues in children. So what are we to do with that, And so some of these things are born out of survival. You cannot trust these systems because all these little systemic things are killing us. And it may not be that somebody is for real, pumping some substance in the water, but there are things being neglected, and it's resulting in our children drinking lead water and our children having all these issues in school. And then that leads to a whole cycle of just different problems. So not to get all serious, but I even though some conspiracy theories be making me scratch my head, I also understand that at the root, there is some truth. And it's kind of just all a part of that oral tradition of us passing down stories about our experiences being in this country, about our experience dealing with enslavement, about our experiences of oppression, and all these different ways that these power structures really are trying to kill us, So anyway, we can get to the fun stuff if you want. Since I just went all dark.
I don't know if this is a fun conspiracy theory, but it is something that I have been thinking about. So I had wrote this poem. I moved to Florida, and 2 weeks later, Hurricane Irma hit. Mm-hmm. So I wrote this poem about Irma, and just because at that time I had been in Florida for 2 weeks. I had visited for a week, so I spent 3 weeks here total. And I noticed after the hurricane came through, it was just Florida had been washed, because usually it's hot, it's humid, it's miserable. And then after Irma, it was calm. The skies were clear. It was a lot drier. And I noticed that each season after that, it wasn't like that anymore. And I remember the next year there was red tide, and it was really bad. And people were praying for a hurricane because they're like, this is the only thing that will fix this at this time. And that was the year that Michael came through. And it did. It fixed the red tide. It wasn't a problem anymore after Michael hit. But Michael was very destructive. So I was thinking about this idea of destruction and whether or not these storms were actually destroying the earth, or whether it was reclaiming it. Because where I live, the Everglades is a third of the size it was, because a lot of it has been drained to make houses and stuff. A lot of the terrain here has been wiped out for development, for houses. And I was reminded of a friend back in college. Her name's Maya. She was a geology major, and she got upset one day because in class she learned that most of our natural disasters in Mississippi, it was tornadoes. Most of our natural disasters, like tornadoes, hurricanes, they would not be as devastating if white people didn't come here and completely change the landscape for quote unquote civilization. Because the earth would have protected us if we lived with it instead of trying to control it. So I was thinking about water as this tool of reclamation, as coming back and reclaiming the land for itself, and how we see it as destruction because we destroyed it and tried to claim a land that wasn't ours. And not just that. So this didn't come from me. It came from Millennial Soul Food on Instagram. They posted this picture that was have you noticed that hurricanes always form off the west coast of Africa and then come to the southeast of the United States? And I was like, So it made me wonder if these are African water spirits who are coming to reclaim us because we belong to Africa. We don't belong to this land. And not just that, it was also Jujube who was talking about how a lot of Black people drown, in Lake Lanier and stuff, because they're Black people under the lake. But sometimes it's African water spirits being like, hey, you're home, and kind of embracing you back into the water. So whereas we see it as death, they see it as returning home. So yeah, I was thinking about all of this. I don't know how to make this a concise conspiracy theory, but it made me think about kind of or look at natural disasters in a different way, not as this tool of destruction, but a tool of reclamation. And because we have been so harmful, or maybe I should say colonizers have been so harmful to this land and to the people and to the animals, the earth is trying to take it back. And it's going through some very extreme measures to do that because of how much damage has been done.
Yeah. You know, one day, which, and this is not to like diminish the chaos and all the different ways that really those most marginalized suffer from what we call natural disasters, because a lot of them are because of colonialism, capitalism, that kind of thing. And of course, we suffer. But I have wondered about this idea of natural disasters actually being the earth resetting itself. Because I think a lot about how, and I don't remember, I always be wanting to credit people, but sometimes it's just casual conversation about how the earth, we always talk about saving the earth as if we, you know, that kind of puts us in this, on this level of like, we're somehow above the earth. We somehow can save the most powerful, something that is way more powerful and grand than us on an individual level. Even humans collectively, we are not, you know, we don't have any dominion over the earth. But like, no, we aren't destroying the earth. The earth is going to purge, you know, whatever it is that is harming it. Like the earth will reset. We won't destroy it. We'll destroy ourselves. Like at the end of the day, when we're gone, the earth will still continue. Like, and so, yeah, when we call it natural disasters, I wonder if it's just this resetting and also like all of it. I mean, there's so much when it comes to like the oceans and water, there's so much violence that the water has absorbed. Just even the fact that we were brought over on, our ancestors were brought over on slave ships, and some of them jumped. Some, who knows, some of them were thrown over. I mean, it was, who knows what was happening, but just the fact that like these passages, all of these passages of bringing people from their lands happened through water, you know, when you really think about it. So, yeah, I mean, I think conspiracy theories, they're so layered. But I also think they're a way that people make sense of of what's happening in their lives. It's a way we make sense of these crazy things that are constructed. They're constructed to oppress us and destroy us. And like, you know, sometimes there's something to it. So, no, we can get into some fun stuff now. So, aliens.
Have you seen Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix?
I have not seen the newer one, but I used to watch the older one when I was younger, which used to scare. I mean, I loved it, but it was so creepy. It was creepy. They
had an episode on aliens, and so all across New England, it was like 10 different people who on the same night all reported seeing, you know, a UFO coming through. There was a loss of time and stuff like that. So it freaked me out. I was like, aliens, I know you're here. Please don't take me.
You know, I do like, I believe that, I don't believe they look the way we think they look. I really don't. Speaking of aliens too being real, there's this film, and I'm going to find it and find the name of it from a friend, where basically the United States government got in contact with some aliens or something. And the deal was that they would fix all the problems happening in the country or in the world if they handed over all the black people. All the black people. Yes. And there was this whole thing where they started marketing it to the black people and basically trying to sell it. But then there was, on the other side, there was someone saying, you know, if they think that we're going to get like a good deal out of this, like they're going to take us to this like utopia, you know they're not going to want us to go because they don't want us to enjoy anything without them. Like, they would hate the idea of Black people going somewhere where they have a better life. So it was like these two, there was like these two kind of organizing groups against Black people going to wherever they were going with these aliens and staying. And eventually, you know, of course, the government made a decision that all Black people were going to go. So it became like you either was going to go voluntarily, which most of them did, because most of them had been convinced that it might be a better life over there for them. And then there were some people trying to get out of it. In fact, at the little round table meeting they were having, and I'm going to find this and post it. Maybe we can attach it to the podcast so people can go find it. But the Black man that was a part of this whole deal, who I guess he thought that somehow he was going to not get sent, they came to his house and forcibly took him. Like, they convinced him that he would be safe because he's on their side. And they came to his house and forcibly took him. And his wife tried to darken her skin because his wife was super light skinned, and they were like, no, you're not going. So it was also kind of like this weird thing where like lighter skinned people were not eligible to go. But the real lesson is you working with the ops against Black people and thinking that you're safe as a Black person, because that man wasn't safe. He was at the table basically in agreement. Like, he got on board with this whole idea of like, we're going to send the Black people off because they said they would fix all our problems on the earth, in this country. And your family is safe. We promise. All his family was safe except for him. His family was super light skinned, which we ain't got to get into that. But yeah, so they ended up coming. Like, it was like one of the white men that were at the table with him, they came with like these security and they got him. They were like, no, you're going. And it was like this whole line. Like, it was very eerie. It was very eerie, but it was, I'm gonna find it. But it was basically about Black people getting traded so white people and light-skinned people could have a utopia without us. And who knows where we were going? The aliens just made that deal. So, girl, who knows? They probably was taking us to go be enslaved again.
Oh,
That is not funny. But yeah, I'm gonna find that movie. That was, it was kind of weird. It was sci-fi-ish, but very dark.
So I think we did a show. I think that's it for folklore and conspiracy theories.
Yeah, feel free to share us any conspiracy theories we may have missed, or maybe maybe there's something to add to some of the old wives' tales that we talked about. But this show is kind of like in honor of Halloween and, all of that. Even though I don't think it was that creepy. I guess the aliens taking Black people was a little creepy.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I don't want the aliens to take me. If they can hear me, please don't take me. Please.
Yeah, but so I guess that wraps up the show. You can follow and tag us on IG and Twitter. And then stay tuned. Next episode is we're going to be talking about God and finding God in nature, and also some of the literature, the Black literature that kind of engages with this idea of God being all of the different aspects of nature. It's going to be a really interesting episode. We're super excited about it. We're also, just a reminder that we're writers, so we're going to be talking a lot about just the aspects of writing and hoodoo and nature and that kind of thing. So did you have any other thoughts, Leah?
No, I didn't.
All right.
Thank y'all for joining us, and stay tuned for our next episode. This show was created and produced by a Black girl named Dani and a Black girl named Leah. Our music was produced by a Black girl named Tasha. Hoodoo Plant Mamas, y'all be blessed.
Bye.
Bye.